This customer just bought this 99 Boxster. They had it for 2 weeks and disaster struck. You probably think you already know what's wrong, but that's not it. Let's find out. Let's get started. Only 95,000 miles on this 99 Boxster, and we can tell before the current owner had it with the previous owner, it's had a pretty rough life. The owner who currently owns it didn't even get to enjoy it for 2 weeks. They were at the gas station, fueled up with some fuel, started the car, and it was this terrible bearing noise, like while the engine was running. He immediately turned it off. It was like, oh my God, that sounds terrible. I'm not even going to start it anymore. I'm just going to tow it home. And he gave us a call and had it towed here. It is currently in pieces, and we have found out what's wrong. But let's take a look around this thing real quick. So here's the front of this Boxster. You can see the paint is etched. It's got lots of chips in it and handprints from somebody else before it's been in the shop.
It's got running egg headlights.
It does. Looks like someone cracked an egg, and there's the yolk, and there's the white, the egg white, and that's what they call these, the runny eggs. A lot of people go to great lengths to get rid of that look, but I don't think it looks all that bad. Some chrome 17s in the front, got some rusty lug nuts, but otherwise the wheels look okay. And down this side looks decent, but you can see we have all these panels open. It kind of looks like a Thanksgiving turkey with all of its feathers up and fluffed up. Actually, it kind of looks like that dinosaur in Jurassic Park when it shoots its neck frills up or whatever. I don't know, that has nothing to do with what we're doing here. Sorry guys. So yes, it is in pieces, but let's finish the tour first. You can see the rear bumper is off. Again, the paint has some pretty strong etching, like bird poop has etched into the paint pretty strong there. It's deep. Got some scratches and some things going on. Paint's not all that great, but it's okay. Not too bad. And again, there's our 17-inch chrome wheels up front. So why in the world is the whole back end torn apart and it looks like a dinosaur about to attack? There's a lot of pieces apart on this thing. So we're going to play the game you guys like to play with the loud noise that was experienced by the current owner at the gas station. And based on what we have torn apart, we'll see if you guys can guess in the comments what's wrong with this car. Is it A, cylinder scoring inside the engine? Really bad scoring, or is it B, IMS bearing failure, or is it C, a Tiptronic transmission failure? Let you guys guess in the comments and we'll see what you guys come up with. If you guessed A, cylinder scoring issue, that is incorrect. It wouldn't make that noise. It would just run really bad, low compression, even burning oil, but it wouldn't make like a roaring bearing noise. Some of you guys are gearheads out there, you know that noise when a bearing goes bad. It's a very loud noise. And cylinder scoring is known to happen on these engines, especially the 911s and things. And when that fails, really nobody rebuilds them. And it's usually 10 grand for a used engine. It's 20 to 30 to have an engine rebuilt by the very few companies in the world that will actually take on the rebuild on one of these engines. I've had customers come in with cylinder scoring. It's like, isn't there something we can do, Car Wizard? Nope. It's going to exceed the value of the car. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. But no, it's not the cylinder scoring, so let's move to B. Is it an IMS bearing? Which many of you probably thought. It's got to be the IMS bearing. That's like guaranteed, bro. That's definitely what it is. Actually, it's not. Danielson drained the oil, and he also took the oil filter off, took it all apart, the filter element. We looked for metal particles, we found nothing. Danielson also did some further testing, which we'll show you here in a minute, that we derived. The answer is no, the IMS bearing is not bad. Really, the percentage of these that fail with the IMS bearing is actually a small percentage. It's just that when one does fail, everybody hears about it, the whole world hears about it. We have repaired a few in here that have started to fail, and if you remember Hoovie's Apollo 911 that he had, it drastically failed while on the racetrack. Is it C? Let's go back and see. So Mrs. Wizard is careful when we did the walk around not to show this, but the transmission is currently removed, and it is the world's most hated Tiptronic transmission. But you know what? It's my favorite transmission. I absolutely hate manuals. I don't like them. But this is actually a very fun transmission when it works. When this first came in, we had it on the lift running, and it was making that terrible noise. We just ran it for a few seconds to verify and to isolate where is it coming from. And I could put my hand right here, and I could just feel it. It's so strong, the vibration. The engine was happy, but man, it was something in here in the gear train of the transmission here is really, really bad. While we had this out, Danielson went ahead and put all the proper tools in place and removed the cap for the IMS bearing. Crystal clean in there. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. But we'll talk more about that here in a minute. But let's take a look at the pan of this transmission.
What is wrong with your fingers?
It looks like a turkey. It's actually one of Danielson's gloves. It doesn't fit me properly, and I don't care. I'm just going to use it to show you something without getting this nasty fluid on me. But look inside of here, guys. It's like sand. I mean, I could sand somebody's car paint with that. It's so bad. It's normal to see a little bit on the magnets, but it's just completely coated in the bottom. Also, this fluid smells like a forest fire. Like right after a fire, that charred carbon smell, it smells really, really burnt. Look at that, guys. I'll put my hand in here. You can just see metal particles running down my hand. It is really, really roached out. We know the IMS bearing is not bad. We know it doesn't have cylinder scoring because that wouldn't cause that noise, and it runs perfectly fine. Well, let's go ahead and start the engine. Danielson actually has this set up to where the engine can run without the transmission in the car. And although it has loud exhaust, that horrible, horrible noise that I heard before is gone. So I'm just going to run it for a few seconds, just enough to let you guys hear. I don't want to run it too long.
Holy crap, Wizard, that was so loud it scared me.
Open headers, that's the way all Porsches should be, right?
No!
That's how some of you guys run your cars out there, and it sounds disgusting, I'm telling you. Anyways, we did hear the loud exhaust, obviously. But that loud noise is gone. It's nothing to do with the engine at all. My guess is a couple of weeks after this guy bought this vehicle, some internal bearings or something inside of all the stacked clutches and clutch packs and things that are in here went south really fast, and it is so nasty. We're not really going to tear it down or mess with it. It really isn't worth the time.
It is to me. I could use some parts out of it.
You could probably use some parts off of it. And at some point we may reveal and show you the damage that was inside. But based on what I see in the pan, tons of sand and metal, and it smells like a forest fire. When I put my hand on this while it was in the car and running, I could just feel it, like it wanted to burst out of the case.
You mean like an alien?
Yes, like Alien Romulus. Have you guys seen that movie? You should. I just went and seen it last week and it was amazing. So, these things used are not 500 bucks. Thousands of dollars, 3, 4, 5, depending on how many miles are on it and how clean it is, it can run the gamut of 3 to 5 grand. That's for a used one, not for a new one. New ones can be 9, 10. So, we've quoted the customer a good used transmission. But let's go take a look back in the engine bay. Obviously, they anticipated work being done to this car. We have this wonderful little brace here that can fit and hold an engine up. You can see they have a little eyelet connected to the back of the engine just so it can be held up. They probably installed it at the factory with that, but that's how we're holding this up. Now let me get this thing up in the air. I want to show you something else. One thing that surprised me, I've done this before with one of these that was a manual transmission. It wasn't too bad. It didn't take too much tear down. I actually looked up the labor times. It was like 8 hours. I went to quote this for the customer. My mind was thinking 8 hours. I looked it up on my database and it said 14.9. Basically 50, almost double the time. Strictly because it's a Tiptronic. The whole bunch of stuff has to come off that you don't have to do with the manual. So that really adds a lot to the labor. Literally double the labor. Now I want to show you while we have this all apart. Everything we have just done is exactly what you have to do an IMS bearing. Let me show you where it's at. So here's our flex plate. We take that off, just those bolts, and there we are. There's our IMS bearing, those 3 bolts, a little cap comes off. It's all contained inside of that hole behind that plate. So here's a picture of an IMS bearing. That's what they look like when you buy the kit. And by the way, they're not $100. The kit's usually $1,000 for a good one, not a cheap one. But I'm gonna let you guys in the comments section, imagine this is your car. Let me know what you think. 95% of the labor to do the IMS bearing has already been done to do the transmission replacement. How many of you would say, I don't want the IMS bearing done, just put it back together with a used transmission, screw the IMS bearing? I don't think the customer is going to do that. We're going to present it to them. It could add $1,500 to the bill. Most of that being just the parts. What would you do? We're this far in. Why would you say, I don't want to look at the IMS bearing. I'll pretend that I didn't see it. We're going to quote the whole job and say you really, really need to do the IMS bearing while we're here. Because you know what would happen if we don't? 6 months from now it will go out. And the question will be, why didn't we address that while it was apart? Because you didn't want to pay for it. Anyways, that's where we're at with this car. Let's get this thing back down. Not really on the ground, but down. So here's the misconception when people buy a $5,000 Porsche Boxster or a $3,000 Mercedes 500 SL. Well, I bought it cheap, so the fixes should be cheap. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. The parts and labor and everything that goes into this car, by the way, it was about 50 or 60 grand when it was new, is still based on its new price. The parts haven't gone down in value, bro, just your car has. So you got to keep that in mind. You're out there shopping for a cheap car. Your repairs will not be cheap. It's just part of the game, I guess. Let's do some prices here. Let's figure this up. This car is probably worth 5 or 6 grand. Let's go with the middle level transmission, not the highest $5,000 one or not the cheapest $2,000 or $3,000. Let's go in kind of in the middle. Let's choose 4. $4,000 for a used transmission. We got 14 hours of labor. Well, I'll go 15 because it said 14.9 and we have some inspection fees and things. So 15 times $175 an hour plus $4,000 for the transmission plus the IMS bearing, $1,500, which most of it is the parts. Wow. That's Porsche life, guys. That's Porsche life. It's the way it is. Now the customer has decided to go through with it. I'm not sure why. I mean, we're going to present the price to them and say, here's what it is. I'm not sure if they're going to go through with the IMS bearing. If they choose not to, it definitely is going to be on the ticket in writing. Customer declined the IMS bearing. If it fails in the future, customer is liable, not Omega Auto Clinic. So remember that when you're scanning tonight on Facebook Marketplace. Oh, sweet, a Boxster for 3 grand. This is what you're looking at. Maybe this customer's been looking for this specific spec of car. They really love this car. They don't want to get rid of it. Whatever reasons, they're willing to put the money into it. Usually, I will not go over the value of the car to do repairs. In this case, it's so expensive not because of the labor, really. The parts are half or even 60 or 70% of the entire cost. So if he puts half up front and says go for it, we'll probably do it. It'll be a good running little car when it's done. As you heard, the engine runs fine and it's not making any weird noises. So we're going to see what the customer wants to do. We definitely want to do a video for you guys before it left because this situation happens to a lot of Porsche owners in the 996, 986 years with IMS bearings and how it can get so expensive so fast. So how do you check to know if it's starting to go out? They usually don't just go out at the snap of a finger. It's like you're driving and all of a sudden, boom, it went out. It's over time. And you'll notice that when you do your oil change, take your oil filter element apart and look for metal particles. If you start seeing it looks like someone dumped a bunch of glitter from Hobby Lobby or something in there, it's probably time for an IMS bearing. Don't wait until it gets filled with metal it'll probably ruin the engine. If you're curious what kind of tools we use to work on this or any other car in the shop, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut if you purchase anything. We really appreciate it. Make sure to hit the subscribe button because Mrs. Wizard has some news for you guys, and there's some other sweet cars we're going to film for you guys. Thanks for watching.